Divine rise, blessed be to your day. On this day of divine rise, blessed be to your day. May it be everything you require to create everything that you desire. May it be everything you require to create everything that you desire. Today I wanted to get into the architecture or the architect. I wanted to get into the architect today. I was playing with my Cosmic Records deck, and the card that I pulled off the top for my build for divination was the architect. The architect. I want to talk about the architect. If you're familiar with how we do the builds with our cards, this is the next time we're going to start building with the cards. So when I was thinking about the architecture of my life, I was thinking of how I constructed my life. As I was thinking of how I constructed my life prior. I had to realize, and what we're going to realize as we're building ourselves up, we're building ourselves into this space with ourselves, building into our authentic self, the old measures of thought will always leave you cutting yourself short. The old measures of thought are going to leave you cutting yourself short. As you being the architect, the master builder, the engineer, the building, going to get the building permits, going to get everything lined up for you to start building. One thing that I had to realize was the old measures of thought. That means the way that I was achieving the way that I achieved what I achieved and what I got, those accolades, those aspects of my life no longer were going to be able to be used as the measures of the success of my authenticity. I had to realize this. A lot of times when we're building ourselves up, when we're coming into this new space, we allow the old measures of thought, the way we used to measure ourselves, the way we used to measure ourselves, the way we used to permit ourselves, the way that we used to avoid accountability, staying inside that pocket, the way that we stayed in that state of avoidance. These old measures of thought, when it comes to building the new aspects of you, when it comes to building the new aspects of the authentic self, building into your truth of now, those will always leave you cutting yourself short. I realized that as I was building myself, as I was rebuilding myself, as I was bringing myself into my new self, I realized that there was a lot of things that I really had to look at. There was a lot of permits. When we think about rebuilding ourselves, one of the visualizations that I was using was, I was thinking about the building permits. I was thinking about HVAC. I was thinking about the contractor license, the agreements. I was thinking about everything that I used and everything that was in my space that I used to build the old me. When we're thinking about building ourselves and our authentic selves, one of the things that a lot of times when we're doing it to our work, we get deep into certain parts. But as we've been breaking it down over the last couple of weeks, the unseen aspects of what builds your space, that was give you the opportunity for your new space. So if I'm in the old space of mind, that's going to come up when I start building, when I start breaking ground. A lot of times when we're rebuilding, I remember when I used to try to rebuild things, or rebrand myself, or refine myself, or I wasn't really finding myself. I wasn't really rebranding myself. I was more in the space with myself of, I was, all right, cool. I can go to Home Depot I can go to Home Depot, Lowe's, I can go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Lumber Liquidators, and I can like go get some paint. I can take up a couple of boards. Take up some paint a little bit, and I can just paint over it. I can go get some drywall, and I can just fill in that hole right there. But the key was, it wasn't the reason that the hole was there. The reason that the hole was there in the wall. The reason that that paint was cracked. The reason that it was sagginess in my ceiling of my own thoughts was because the reason that those were there, just like for many of our lessons, it's something for me to have to really look at. It wasn't until, because it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to remodel my kitchen. I'm going to remodel myself. I'm going to go to the gym a little bit. I'm going to work out a little bit. I'm going to change up my hair. I'm going to go grab some accessories. Most of the times when we're rebuilding ourselves in this architecture scheme, one of the things that we're looking at is our pocket. One of the things that we're stuck in is that pocket. We're watching our own pockets. We're like, this is going to cost me too much. Me going into this space with myself is going to cost me too much. The old measure of thought is going to leave you cutting yourself short. A lot of the times for me, just in not really understanding how deep that became for me, I noticed that thought process I had in my mind by not really treating myself or really not giving myself things, always giving, like not really putting into myself, I started to see that more and more. I started to see the root of that. That was the root to me building myself up. I remember for about 7-8 years, I didn't know how much I was emotionally detached, or I was in a state where I was always in a space where I was making myself smaller. I was making myself smaller. I was dumbing myself down. I was keeping myself at a certain level. And I would tell myself it was for the fear of outshining anybody or for the fear of people looking at me like I'm crazy. But in reality, what it was, when I was telling myself this, it was me afraid to step out of my pocket. It was afraid of me to step out of the pocket. You see, inside of your pocket, you are protected by your emotions. You think you're protected by your emotions. Inside your pocket, you think that you're protected by your behavior. See, I was in that pocket. When I stayed in that pocket, it was always between my behavior and my emotions. I was always in the pocket, right here in the little pocket. And I was right in between my emotions and my behavior. So every time I came up out of the pocket, it was my behavior coming out of the pocket. It was how I was it was my reaction coming out of the pocket. It was my emotions coming out of the pocket. It was never me coming out of the pocket. It was always an identity that I had to, it was always a glamour that I could use to pull out of my pocket. It was always, let me use this. So I was always watching my pockets. I was always watching my pockets to see how much energy I had in that pocket to go do what I needed to do. And then I noticed that when it came time for me to do things for myself, that's when I watched my pocket the most. If I did things such as self-care, if I was doing my shadow work, if I was really dealing with myself, that means I would have to take accountability for the accounts. I would have to take responsibility for my accounts. Why I opened up that account. Why I was inside of that space. Why did I build myself something to look over into that space? This is what happens a lot of times because those old measures of thought left me cutting myself short. those old measures of thought left me cutting myself short. I was always cutting myself short. I was unsure of myself. So I stayed in the avoiding aspects. But then when I was looking at the things that I was doing when I was going out, and when I was using my identity or whatever my avatar, what I created in that space, I noticed that I was walking out through there. Ooh, I'm gonna use this. So now inside of that space, since I was in the pocket of my behavior and my emotions, my anger was the shit that guided me. My anger is what I built upon. My sadness is what I built upon. My depression is what I built on. My jealousy, my insecurities, these aspects is what we're building on. But as we're breaking down and getting deeper and deeper, it just gave me the room. And a lot of us are building on compelling assumptions. A lot of us stay in these positions based on compelling assumptions. A lot of us stay where we're at based on compelling assumptions. The rush or the feeling of belonging to a set behavior or identifications. A state of complacency in when one's actions coincide with the narrative that keeps them safe. This is most of the times why we don't answer that why. Arousing without evidence up to the current keeps us in that past state. A lot of us keep building on those compelling assumptions. And that's what we're going to get into this week on the God Hour podcast. Those compelling consumptions. Those compelling assumptions. We're going to be getting into the imitation of flattery. How fear disables the ability to take true initiative in learning ourselves. We're going to get into the integration of the shadow, acknowledging those multiple eyes that are inside of our darkness that challenge our safety and keep us this steady without intention, it's always imitation. Without clear intention, without clear direct intention, it's always imitation. And then we don't get into the assassination of the assumptions. This week on the God Hour podcast, every Tuesday, 6 a.m., dropping a new episode. I want you to tune in to tap out and be the fucking best. I desire you to be the best. I want you to be the best. But it's time for you to assess those old thoughts. It's time for you to really look at those and take that assessment of your old measure of thought. Because that's what's cutting you short. You want to use those old measurements. The old measures, the old acts are not going to help you build anything in this new aspect of you. All it's going to build is another reason for you to keep maintaining that old behavior of you being scared, you being upset, you being mad, you staying in that pocket. It's time to step out of that fucking pocket. I desire you to be the best. I want you to be the best. Invest in the change. Without your intention being clear, you will only be imitating and creating another identity. I love you. We love us. Ashe.